way I can capture my sort of life journey has been, if you call this a tale of two creativities. Running Big Bazaar and setting all their big promotions at that time. At Nykaa we created this brand for Gen Z. Brand is not just a fashion; it is a category agnostic brand. There is this whole piece of the iceberg that is just not visible to you. You have no clue that there are such interesting ideas that exist.
Hello Shantanu, it's so great having you here. Tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? Let's get this started.
Hey Brad, thanks a lot, man. Really thankful for you to have called me on this. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm sure this is going to be a fun conversation where both of us sort of pick up something from each other.
Absolutely.
Something about myself. I think the best way I can capture my sort of life journey has been, if you call this a tale of two creativities. Which is, I have a professional life, right, where I do brand building, I talk to consumers, do consumer research, manage brands, run brands, which is equally creative. And then there is the other creative pursuit of my life, which is, my parenting. I love to spend time with my daughter, teach her as she's growing, spend as much time as I can. Traveling with my family is again something that I really look forward to. And of course there's pottery. That's again very integral to my life. So yeah, I think both these creative pursuits are very close to my heart. One which pays me, my professional life pays me for being able to also pursue other things. And the other creative part, my pottery, which actually adds richness to my life. So yeah, I think that's the best way I can sort of describe my life.
Makes sense, and we'll get into both of those. I'm super excited with this. And it's always interesting how creative people, strategic people handle creativeness in their life, and you're doing that really great. So kudos to that. How did you get into consumer research, brand strategy, and also tell us about the concept of a fractional CMO? That's super interesting.
So I started off with advertising after my college. And when I was doing advertising, then the whole exciting bit was marketing. You have to be on the client side. And so I went out, did my I did my management studies, and then I joined marketing. So initially when I started in advertising, I was with JWT, then took a break to do my management studies, then joined Future Group. I was on the marketing side, running Big Bazaar and setting all their big promotions at that time. And that's when you realize that in order to be good at marketer, you need to understand consumers, you need to understand brand strategy. So then Futurebrands was being set up by Santosh Desai, and I had a chance to join him. So then the whole brand strategy thing started. I spent a substantial amount of time there at Future Group, creating brands for them, running brands for them. Then did bit of, I was with another consumer research consulting setup for a while. Then I was with Nykaa last. There again, I was creating brands. So having done all of this, then I, having worked for about 22 years, then now I realized that at this age and stage of my career, I think, we're all moving towards this subscription life, pay as you use kind of a life. And therefore, this fractional CMO kind of a format really works for me. It's a very tightly knit, planned kind of an engagement where you sort of understand the problems of the brand and then work with the founder or with, somebody on the client side to then set some clear milestones. And in terms of, so you involve yourself fractionally, put a part of your, time on that brand. But that then allows you, it works both ways because it allows you to work across different categories, across different consumer sets. And it also allows the brand or the business to use you as much as they want rather than, putting you full time. So I think it works both ways and it's very liberating. It's very inspiring. So it's been a good, fun journey for the last 1 year that I've been doing this, and let's see where it takes me.
Amazing. Yeah, this is actually a really interesting concept. It's like a freelance with much more stakes and much more inclusion, much more capacity to work and actually give your best into a role without being full time. Sense.
I felt that freelance really doesn't do justice to the kind of involvement you have, because you really set those milestones and then those timelines and say that we'll reach here, review whether this is working, and then go forward. So and you are basically delivering on everything that a typical CMO would do. So that works perfectly fine. And I think this is a much sharper description of this kind of an engagement. Yes.
Right. The skin in the game is actually what helps.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Can you tell us about a project that you had solved which was really challenging, and how did you handle that?
So quite a lot of them actually over the years. I won't say challenging. All of them have been fun. A lot of learnings to have. So for example, at Nykaa, we created this brand for Gen Z. It was a fashion brand that we wanted to target Gen Z with. And when we put it together, I think what was the interesting thing about it was that, you come to realize that Gen Z is a very interesting consumer set. It's it's not really a category or just a consumer set. It's actually a lifestyle. And therefore, the whole idea was that while we started off as fashion brand, the whole thinking was that, we should actually pivot into an engagement idea, that this brand is not just a fashion, it is a category agnostic brand. And when you're talking to Gen Zs, you don't need to go to them with an agenda. You have to go with an idea of engaging with them, and that can happen across categories. So if you've created an idea that really works with them, so the challenge was to actually then pivot that into an idea that that can have any kind of categories, and not just fashion. It can have skincare, it can have electronics, it can have lifestyle products. I think those were interesting ways to also look at it. So I found that project to be quite interesting. Besides that, more recently, I worked on a sneaker brand, and while the whole idea was to reposition it, they were more of a slipper first or open footwear brand, and they wanted to pivot into creating new range of sneakers. And there are enough of brands out there today. So the challenge was to how do you what is the differentiation, and what we arrived at was that we are a design first idea, that we will give you some very interesting designs that really inspire you. And then we realized that, just calling it a design first doesn't help. So how do you operationalize? How do you make it more? How do teams really understand what design first mean? So the real challenge there was to actually articulate the idea of their design. What do they mean by design, and what is the differential that they bring to the market? And that was fun, writing that out, and then writing it at a manifesto level, but then translating that into what content would do, what product will do, how will they articulate the idea of design in each of their work. Some of these two projects quite interesting, and like I said, it allows me to play around with different categories, different consumers. Some of this continues to happen.
What has been a crucial insight for you since this almost like 2 decades of your journey and experience?
That's a heavy one. I think personally, at a very personal level, if I were to say that if there's something that really really drives me as a purpose kind of a statement, so I think I would say I find this statement quite inspiring when I say that I don't know what I don't know. So there are things that I know, things that I do, my work, pottery, I know these things, but there are things that I know that I don't know. For example, there is rocket science, and I know there is something like that. There's calculus. There are many things that I know exist, but I don't know, and I choose to stay away from it, or choose to then engage with it. But there is this whole piece of the iceberg that is just not visible to you. You have no clue that there are such interesting ideas that exist, and you don't know about them. And I find that very powerful. And how I really operationalize that is to say that you need to be slightly better today than you were yesterday. How do you be something different, and you move forward ahead in life every day? And that's been my motto. At least I try and look at it like that. And in order to do that, it's always important that you always try and do new things. You don't lock yourself into one idea. You do things with an idea that am I able to find something new, in what you've been doing on a daily basis. So I think these three have been quite close to my heart, and that's something that has pushed me not just on my professional side, but also on my ceramic side, but also as a parent, as a husband, as a friend. I think when you look at life like that, it has implications across your life, and it can give you that drive all through.
That's a really liberating idea that I believe a lot more people should actually inculcate, which is I don't know what I don't know, which is being comfortable with not knowing something, and that's how you grow actually. Super interesting. Any insights now from the marketing side of things or the work side of things?
I think on the marketing side, I think that's something that we've been doing that's something that I've been doing like all these years. You know, so we did this exercise called Bharat Darshan, where we'd go down to cities, meet people, look at their lives in real, and there it's an eye-opening experience when you're not doing a very formal kind of a consumer research, but you're actually just engaging with people in general and asking them about their lives, what they think has changed over time. And that's very inspiring and eye-opening kind of an experience. And you see some very interesting things, that may not immediately become apparent for you from, say, a professional purpose or for, say, from your brand purpose or that kind of an idea. But it really sort of stays back with you in terms of, what you can do with it. How can you turn that into something that could be both professionally and personally very inspiring? So I think my conversations with Gen Z has been quite interesting. Looking at people, their lives, their daily lives is again very interesting, where you pick up some very interesting nuances. So all of that has really sort of stayed with me, and that continues to sort of drive my both professional and creative pursuits.
Makes total sense. And this thing that you say about Bharat Darshan, it actually brings an example that we use at Amig as well, which is if you want to make an affordable, like let's say an affordable house product, let's say cooker for example, and you send out a user survey, you ask them what feature do you need, does this feature work, blah blah blah. Instead, if you just go out and spend time with mothers and other working professionals who are actually cooking for a day, just spend some time with them, just see them making a breakfast, you'll get much more insights for your product. I think that really works, right?
Truly, yeah.
Amazing.
Completely agree.
Along with this, now what I'm really curious to know about is Earth and Souls. Tell us about that.
So, pottery has been part of my life since 2008. So it's been about 16 years that I've been doing pottery. I've done my shows, I've done solo shows, group shows. I was also awarded for one of my works. So that's something that has stayed with me, and therefore I don't call it a hobby. It's something more than a hobby. But and in that pursuit, I wanted to set up a studio. And that's where this genesis of Earth and Souls happened. See, the idea of Earth and Souls is not just pottery, but it's more about slow living. Objects and people that allow you to sort of take pause in life and spend time with each other. That was the idea of setting up that studio, where people could come together, work in pottery, but largely just spend time, just experience slow living for a while. And I think the interesting bit about pottery, and for that matter anything that is art or anything that is handmade, is that it's not perfect. It's let me show you this. This is a mug that I made for my daughter. So you can see it's handwritten her name, and then there's this bump here, and it'll never look perfect for you, right? And therefore it speaks to you at every time you engage with it. That's the purpose of art. It'll always speak to you and sort of help you discover something new with it all the time. And that's what slow living is, that you sort of slow down in life, look at things around you, and there is enough to discover. Otherwise, in our daily lives, we're stuck with work and things to do, and we're always thinking of day after tomorrow, and therefore we lose touch with what's happening around us, and especially things both living and non-living. And that was the idea of Earth and Souls. And within that, of course, pottery is something I continue to do. I shut down my studio, but I work with somebody else who has another studio where I go and work with. So we take, pottery classes, we do workshops, I make my own work, and that's what sort of keeps me. So that's where the idea of Earth and Souls, which is more, grounded and both living and non-living souls, where they all come together and help you just sort of slow down your life, take a pause, and sort of have conversation with each other.
That's so amazing, and it's actually so interesting, which is the idea of slow living. It resonates with, I think, the majority of people right now, because the work and our lives are just moving so fast paced, we're losing kind of track of our own self. It makes total sense. Super interesting, the idea of Earth and Souls. And I would really want you to talk about how you have kind of shaped it up more than a hobby, how you have taken it more than a hobby, and how you have inculcated it as part of your life. This is super interesting.
So one is that it sort of keeps me engaged at a very creative level, but more importantly, it is I do it over the weekends, and what it allows me to do is just 5-6 hours of complete sort of silence, where I'm just working with clay and just engaging with what I want to make. I'm probably making a few things, But it's it's a time that you just sort of engage with yourself and you just having a conversation, and that what when you allow that emptiness to happen within you, it creates various kind of conversations, and it allows me to unlock a lot of things. So that's something that has continued. But I think even at a professional level, so like I try and write a lot on LinkedIn, and one of the things I want to do is take a very art sort of a view on life in general. And that comes from, and then I use a hashtag called Potter's perspective, which is primarily to say that what are the learnings that we can take forward from here that applies equally interestingly and well to anything in our lives. So what can brands learn from pottery? So I put out a post of what brands can learn from teapots, right? Or what I have learned by teaching people. Sometimes when you work with people at one level, I truly believe that making pots is not really a complicated thing to do. One can learn to make pots within few hours, but it's about the process and how different people engage with it. Some have a very cultural way of making pots, while others have a very functional way of making pots. So it's interesting to look at different people, how they some people actually come and draw on things, right? They make something and then they like to draw on it and they paint on it. So it's a very painter's take on pottery. So I like to observe a lot, and everything is like has some information or some learning for me. And through those observations, I think there are lots of things that I'm able to sort of take in and then use that across life in general. Whether it is work, whether it is life in general, it works for me. So that's been the interesting part of pottery for me all this while.
I agree. I believe bridging this gap between like the mundane work and the creative expression is something I believe everyone should strive for. Because at the end of the day, the thing that you earn money from, if it doesn't become mundane, it at least becomes routine, and that's how it is. Of course, it will be. And so maintaining a level of creative expression along with that is something I believe everyone should strive for. Would you agree?
So in fact, my sense is that life should have both monotony as well as creativity. You have to embrace both. So for example, I can tell you in pottery, there are moments when, I don't think I'm creative all the time, right? It's a word that has been very badly used, right? There are enough number of times where I'm reproducing things. So for example, somebody's asked me to make, say, 20 mugs for them. So I'm making the same set of mugs and making 20 of them, sitting together, making the same handles and joining them together. So I'm trying to make them all look similar. Of course, because you're making by hand, it'll never look similar. But that is the mundane process. And to my mind, a lot of stuff when you do multiple times, that's when you find how to push boundaries and take it to the next level. So I think the part of learning or one trajectory of learning has to involve reproduction, doing the same thing over and over again in order to discover what else can you do, what is your language, what is it that you're searching for. And therefore that is a process, that takes time. So no matter what you're doing, whether you are in your professional work or like I work with my daughter, helping her with mathematics. And there are times when I say just do the same thing, the same sum at least 5 times so that you get the process. And once you get the process, you know where to sort of nudge and where to change, where to find your own balance and move ahead. So I think monotony, one needs to embrace monotony in order to be creative. I think both have to come together. And when that happens, I think you will always discover magic. And that's the way I look at it, and that's the way I've progressed. Yeah.
That's a beautiful line. Monotony has to be practiced for you to be creative. It makes sense.
Exactly.
It makes total sense.
Exactly.
The more you practice, the more you kind of know where are the boundaries, and then you can break them.
Yeah. Exactly.
How will you advise the younger generation to not get kind of carried away by possessions and actually nurture a hobby and, if possible, make money from?
I think, I'm quite impressed with the new generation, and every generation has something new. Every 10 years, you look at the new generation and they have something new to add. So I don't think I'll have much to sort of offer them. In fact, I like to spend a lot of time, through either consumer conversations or just in general. Kids in my family, the young adults in my family, I like to spend a lot of time with them to just see what's happening. They are like my sources or my ears and eyes to this new world that I cannot experience on my own. And they simplify it for me. And in many ways, I think I personally think that they're quite creative. The fact that they are this current generation is a very digital first generation. They're creative on their own, and in fact they're able to describe things a lot more interestingly and are able to sort of differentiate and say, oh, this is different from this. That itself, is in a way an appreciation for creativity in my view. But I think if at all, if I have to sort of, and therefore I continue to spend time with them, but if at all I have to sort of look at what they can better, could be that, the sense I get is that because they've been very digital first, they've been very independent. Unlike my generation, which grew up where one had to, if you had to play, you had to play with friends. If you had to, you could not play alone. You studied together. You always had another family member or a brother or a sister. A lot of these kids are also, single children. So what typically tends to happen is it has created a distance between each other, between people in general. And I get a sense that there is lack of collaboration, lack of, while they appreciate multiple viewpoints that, I agree with you. And, I don't sense the excitement around collaboration, and a lot of exciting things happen when people collaborate.
True.
So I think that's something that I would really nudge this generation to sort of do. Try and push yourself to see, not just hear others' viewpoint, but also try and see how that can add to your life. So working together could be, I sense there's a lot of skepticism in terms of, others in general, because, you've been so independent. You prefer to work alone, and you see a lot of the youngsters becoming freelancers and, doing independent work. Exactly. And but eventually you'll realize that, while there's a lot of work that you can do on your own, there's AI but I think the real, real push or creativity will really come about is when you start to, collaborate, create things together, experience different ways of working. You could be working in one way, but when you work with somebody else, you discover a new way of doing things. And that, I think that's where, so shun that skepticism, embrace working with other people, because eventually the progress will be a collaborative work. It cannot be individually pursued. So one has to sort of, so I think if you were to collaborate and work with others, discover ways of, doing things with different people, I think that's something that this generation can really value a lot from, can really
Makes
take
sense.
forward from.
This is really poignant, and it's a great conversation. The two core tenets that I'm kind of taking away from this conversation. The first one is how you have been able to integrate both parts of your life, as you said, right? The both types of creativities. And I read that post on learning from teapots and using it for brand strategy. It's super interesting. So amazing. And the second thing that comes up to mind is how well-roundedness, Lee, you have thought your life. You talk about your daughter, talk about your family, you talk about pottery, you talk about brand strategy. You have been able to kind of have a well-rounded life, which is something I would say a lot of people wish to achieve. They're not able to kind of achieve.
I hope that continues, yeah.
Yes. I believe that's an amazing blessing that you have. So yeah, amazing.
Truly.
Thanks for your time, man. This was a fun conversation. Actually,
same here, man. Thank you. Yeah. And when you talk about yourself, there are parts of you that you discover yourself. So I think, thank you for making this happen.
This was amazing.
It was great talking to you, man.
See you.
Take care, man.